But there is also rethinking about supply chain, for instance, that I think as designer it's the most interesting things to do at the moment, more than designing an object. We are in the biggest furniture fair in the world, and the question, do we really need another chair, is still very relevant. And for us, like what we did for Tacchini, what we are doing for Artec, is really rethinking the supply chain. And for us, that's what we are at the moment very interested in.
That's Andrea Trimarchi, co-founder with Simone Farresin of Formafantasma, the research-driven design studio who are really leading the conversation on sustainability and design, not just from a materials perspective, but also a human one. This episode of the WGSN Create Tomorrow podcast is the third in our 4-part series on Milan Design Week. Joining me for this 4-part series on Milan is Lisa White, Director of Interiors and our Creative Director, and Gemma Riberti, our Head of Interiors. And in this episode, we explore some of the highlights from the week that explored sustainability and circular design systems. So we can't talk about Milan Design Week without touching upon sustainability, because I think, thankfully, this is becoming part of the conversation more and more every year, even though you might argue it's a little bit of an odd thing when we're all flying to Milan to look at all these innovations. But nevertheless, it's on the table very much. And there were some really great examples from students kind of working on what a wind farm could look like, to IKEA's exhibition as well, which I think you'd like to talk about a little bit, Lisa. But so of all the great examples, what did you see and what caught your eye in this area?
I really did feel that this year the sustainability conversation and conversations actually around the design industry did reach a new level. And this was at a mass production and also a speculative futures level. And there was a new level of corporate engagement and thought leadership, which I found very heartening. And of course, there's still much more work to be done, but we're definitely going in the right direction. And again, from a mass market perspective, I really did feel that IKEA clearly laid out its steps to be on target to reach their very ambitious sustainability goals for 2030. And that includes using only renewable and recycled materials for 2030, which, quite frankly, is only 7 years away. So, they're big goals, and they demonstrated the work they're doing in a way that really spoke to visitors. How they're so good at speaking to people in really clear ways. And they divided their space into earth, air, fire, and water, which are classic divisions understood by all cultures. And for example, in fire, they spoke about their goal of using only 100% renewable energy by 2030. And they explained that in 2022, they were only at 74%. And, last year, they also launched the home solar panel to customers. And this time at Milan Design Week, they launched this great solar-powered lamp in collaboration with Little Sun that makes a portable solar lamp, again, that's easy to use indoors, outdoors, anywhere. And I really loved the design because it looks like an ancient astrolabe, which was used centuries ago to calculate the position of the sun. Again, old as new.
Yeah, the IKEA show was brilliant. They had that fantastic little vintage section where they had lots of pieces because they were celebrating 80 years, right? So they had like a beautiful leather chair and some Vico Magistretti lights that you could buy at the Italian store. They were going to do a little capsule vintage collection. So you're right, they really do know how to engage the consumer on that. Gemma, what did you notice this year around this topic?
Yeah, more or less we're overarching topics in a number of shows, and they tended to focus on the more aspect that is actually plaguing us now with that overabundance of things and products and stuff. Paola Navone was literally giving away in a lottery much of her vintage pieces that she's been collecting over decades, wanting to clear her shelves, basically, so to speak. And indeed, Maarten Baas had this quite controversial installation in collaboration with G-Star Raw Denim, the fashion run. They started out with the material that was created out of denim waste. Baas made it into wardrobes, but then he also clad an entire airplane jet in the material and showcased it into a deconsecrated church. The aim was to comment on how most visitors flew to Milan, which is, in fact, a not so sustainable mode of transport.
We caught up with Maarten actually to talk about this installation. So let's take a listen now about this collaboration with G-Star Denim. What made you come back this year? This is obviously quite a strong sustainability message with G-Star Denim.
G-Star approached me to work with this recycled material, and I never really wanted to be part of this green design thing because I feel like I have other things to do. I've more an artistic point of view, and and I always found it a little bit difficult to wrap my head around it. Like everybody's coming here to Milan in an airplane, and then we are talking about green design. I thought like, yeah, this doesn't feel right, and I don't want to be an ambassador for that message either. So so I thought so when they asked me like, hey, do you want to work with us? And I said like, I only want to I only want to work if I can make a private jet out of the recycled material. Yeah, obviously the private jet being the symbol for luxury and consumerism and all that, and then making that in a green material. Yeah, I thought like, well, that at least shows the elephant in the room rather than act as if you're saving the world.
Was it a hard material to work with? Had they sent you some samples of this compressed denim kind of? It's sort of like, it's a bit like, I'm trying to think what other material it's like. It's kind of like a really hard cardboard type feel.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, cardboard kind of laminate kind of material it is, which comes in different variations, like either soft, like cottonish kind of material, or really hard, like a plank, and this is bendable, so it's indeed a kind of a cardboard kind of rigidness. And yeah, and like that, I made this patchwork of different parts of the material, and also the material is never equal in color. Like so I made this also different grades of blue, because of it never really not one sample is exactly the same as the other. So that's why I chose to use it in this way.
What's the structure underneath? Because it's like a steel structure. Or...
Yeah, no, we used a wooden skeleton actually to work with, and then and also the structure also partly comes from the material itself.
Do you think there's something you'll take away from this project that will lead into something else, or?
I don't know. Like that could be. I quite liked to work in this kind of patchwork kind of way. Even the wheels have that recycled rubber, like they are pieces of bicycle tires. And there are some cans, like how do you call it, like the cans from which you have food, which are the metal-looking parts. So I quite like to kind of assemble all those pieces like in that very straightforward way, and then making a patchwork out of it. So who knows? It's another way of working, which is on my palette of ways of working. So this could be happening as well.
And what else are you working on at the moment? Have you got lots going on?
The most exciting thing for me now is a solo show in Voorlinden. That's my favorite museum probably in the world, and it's in the Netherlands. So it's also my favorite museum in the Netherlands. I always said like, oh yeah, that's really where I want to have a show, and then they approached me. That's what I'm working on now. That will be in June. So yeah, that's from the tip of my tongue.
First. Brilliant! Did you find? I've talked to quite a few people this year, and they've sort of talked about how much they had to be inventive during lockdown and COVID. And did you find yourself being really inventive and having a lot of time to work in that period because you were kind of locked down?
I did a very nice thing in Portugal. Like together with a friend of mine, we bought a big piece of land, and that will be kind of a creative place where people can stay and work and do things. And that was really like that was kind of one of the results of the lockdown. I thought like, okay, well, this is a good moment to also have that place, because there at least I could do at any time. I could work, because nobody would lock me down in that place, or at least it was a very good place to be locked down in, because it was a very nice it's a beautiful area.
That sounds amazing. So can anyone go there, or is it?
Not yet, but eventually we hope to host people there, and preferably either creative people or people from more the agricultural background. because there's also a lot of land. We planted 80,000 trees this year, so we're on our way.
It's quite a thing, and obviously for good reasons, but quite a lot of people are becoming farmers and doing regenerative things. It's quite interesting. And I think that there's obviously a movement in travel towards people wanting to make somewhere better than when they leave it, kind of, and not sort of take. So I think you're obviously doing the right thing. It's exciting.
Yeah, it's very nice. So that's something that came from probably from Corona, the Corona time and the lockdowns and all that. But I'm really glad that finally we really can make things and present things.
So that was Maarten Baas talking about his collaboration with G-Star Denim this year. So yeah, one of the things as well around sustainability that sort of entered into the conversation was that kind of like geopolitical aspect and the supply chain aspect of sustainability, which was sort of touched upon by Formafantasma amongst other people. And this, I know we started to talk about value chain as much as supply chain, but Lisa, this is something we're really talking about a lot now, isn't it?
But yeah, we recognize this whole geopolitical aspect of design in our STEPIC methodology, which is our foundation at WGSN. So, all of our trends are rooted in research based on society, technology, the environment, politics, industry, and creativity, STEPIC. So those are the geopolitical aspects of design and sustainability, and they're increasingly being demonstrated and debated in Milan. And what I love about Formafantasma is they're always at the leading edge of this conversation. And with Prada Frames, they've designed conferences with thought leaders on the subjects that are underpinning sustainability. People come to Milan to look at design, to talk about design, but they're actually investing in conferences. But also their physical design work is both very grounded in reality and indicates more speculative futures too. Last year their conference was on wood and on recognizing forests as sentient beings that we need to work with rather than exploit. And this year, the conference was on materials. Again, the material is the message. And that's super important because, for example, architecture causes 40% of worldwide CO2 emissions. That's a huge responsibility. So producing and using circular and regenerative materials is crucial for the future.
Yeah, and we will hear from Formafantasma in a little bit, but I think one of the things that was quite interesting about their talks is that there were many anthropologists involved. It was not just designers and people from design brands. It was much more talking about this on a human level, right? Which is what we are talking about more and more, Lisa.
Yeah, that social level of STEPIC, the social aspect of sustainability, because, it has so many implications in human terms. How can we both uphold and learn from people, craftspeople worldwide? How can we maintain human jobs and human dignity? And at a time when we're looking at new types of supply chains and value chains, we in the centralized, global north have so much to learn from the decentralized production in the global south. They still have what we have lost. And rugs in particular tell so many geopolitical stories of power and resources. And those telegram rugs that Formafantasma designed with artisans in Nepal are really a case in point. The artisans are really front and center to the design.
Indeed. Let's have a little listen now from Formafantasma about the telegram rug collection. First, we hear from Simone Farresin, and then Andrea Trimarchi joins in. They are both the co-founders of Formafantasma, and we caught up with them at the showroom of rug brand CC Tapis.
First of all, I would say that maybe to say that these are co-created, it is not fully correct in the sense that this is more of a way of finding a bridge between geographical places which are very afar, between cultures that are very afar, and in a way to break the glass mirror that divides production from the design, from the centralized design that happens in Europe and the decentralized production that happens in Nepal. So for us, this is simply a way, as the title says, telegram, to break the glass mirror, to do not look only at the object as for the colors, the patterns, the beauty of it, and the quality of execution, but to have something in it that constantly remind you of the politics that are also going on, that it is also about, I would say it's also power disbalance, which I'm not saying that, I think it is great that these craftsmen are working with carpet making. But I think it's also too important to remind that this reality is going on, that it's not just simply about the beauty of the object. And these objects are trying to do that.
And how did you choose the questions that you posed to the
Shall I? Well, actually, we went very intuitively with that. First of all, they probably already explained to you how it works, but the works was inspired by the fact that whenever they have to produce rugs, even if, for instance, the rug is round, in any case, in the sort of loom or the structure where they are working, they have to fill in all the gaps to make it rectangle. Then the shape is cut out. So usually craftsmen then they do whatever they want, with whichever colors they want. And there is a beauty in that. Actually, it's not only a beauty, it's just wonderful to see that in a way, then the works of people is sort of put at the margins and the author is in the middle, which is actually what you see also here. The words are all around the corners, but it's just suggesting what happens usually, that you have these things happening. So, sorry, remind me again the question?
The questions.
The questions, yes.
Because I just want to say that obviously I think one of the favourites would be the one which has AC/DC at the top and then carpets, Puff Daddy.
I know.
And then also a beautiful written where the A's missed off. I mean, and I love that there's not a typeface. It's all, the handwriting is all there. But
Yes.
how did you decide what to ask them?
Well, it's a bit we got inspired in any case from what they were writing, what they're actually writing on the carpet most of the time. And usually they are like the name of the family or the people that they listen to, the singers or the movie they watched the night before. So in a way we wanted really to ask, what they like. And one of the questions is also, what do you see out of the mirror? And it's quite
window.
Out of the window. And it's also interesting that
I
one
think
of
it's
it,
that rug.
Yeah.
You see that thing, SP, and then there is that weird thing. That's another company.
it's
You see another company.
That's brilliant.
Isn't
Exactly,
that?
but that's also, it's the reality of where the carpet are made.
And also, I find it beautiful because whenever you give freedom, then suddenly these interesting things happen. But we also ask things like, what makes you angry? What do you love? Who's the love of your life? I think somebody wrote the mom, or so also emotional things, and also in a way those questions that you ask to people you don't know. Do you see what I mean? Like we just went. Actually, to be honest, we went very intuitive with the questions.
Okay, more broadly, I know you've got your Prada frames again. Last year was brilliant. I came to a few of them, which was all about the forest and wood. And this year it's materials, if I got that correctly. Materials. So what made you choose that? How do you make these decisions?
It was actually in conversation with Prada. At the beginning, we thought that we wanted to work on the subject of waste, which is obviously at the center of sustainability, design, culture, and production. But then we thought it was very limiting because we have the feeling the idea of waste is very centered on the economic market that decide what has value and what has not. But materials, if I take a piece of rock, that's how can I name that if it is waste or precious? And that's the same for materials. When something is disposed, nowadays, that's not anymore waste. It's just something that is in transition to become something else. That's why we call it materials in flux. We want to somehow erase the idea of waste while acknowledging it in a way.
And what's your opinion on the kind of moving to a world where we no longer extract, but we kind of use biomaterials more and more instead? Have you got kind of I know the talks explore ideas, but have you reached a point yourselves where you have an opinion on that? Or
I mean, definitely.
Yeah, let's say that most of our work in this moment is really focusing on that, at least both on a theoretical level. And when we can also, with companies, one of the example is the collaboration we are having with Artec. I mean, it's not really only about using and reusing materials, but there is also rethinking about supply chain, for instance, that I think as designer, it's the most interesting things to do at the moment, more than designing an object. We are in the biggest furniture fair in the world, and the question, do we really need another chair, is still very relevant. And for us, like what we did for Tacchini, what we are doing for Artec is really rethinking the supply chain. And for us, that's what we are at the moment very interested in.
I know people are starting to talk about a value chain. Is that something that you want to think about as well? And are you thinking about this in relation to reducing where you are sourcing things from? Is that something as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think what we feel is extremely important for us is to do not try to offer global answers. I mean, with ecology sustainability, there is always the attempt of saying the solution is this or the solution is that, while solutions are always contextual. So in this respect, I mean, definitely reduction is important and so on, but I think it depends, what we mean, where, how, I mean, we can't reduce things to the point that people don't have any more, for instance, work, or we cannot chop out parts of the production chain if this means also that people will lose their job, or do you see what I mean? Yeah. So I think the answer is always complex, and what we're trying to do with Prada frames is to do not make things, we don't want to simplify, we want to accept complexity, but hopefully make it clearer.
Yeah. So what of the talks, which are you sort of most excited about, or is that you can't be diplomatic and say what's you've structured them in
what we can definitely say is that today, for instance, the morning conversation between Hans Ulrich and Eduardo Kohn, who is an anthropologist, I thought it was amazing. Elizabeth Povinelli in the afternoon too.
And then also we had the chance to really start with Tim Ingold. There was a bit also, in a way, who inspired this year the symposium, and it was an incredible 15 minutes, very short but very dense.
So we actually mentioned 3 anthropologists. So maybe that says it all.
So next year, I mean, on the edge of our seats. I hope this continues, this series. I guess we'll
see.
To see. What else have you done that I should see this year?
We took some of their classics and the pieces they sell the most, and we tried to decrease, not remove fully, the amount of foam within the upholstery, adding wool from local ships.
They usually are discarded because in Europe the majority of wool that comes from farming, intensive or not intensive, doesn't matter, got wasted because of there's no actual economic value. So what we're trying to do, also because we're doing a big work for the National Gallery of Oslo, they open in May, the end of May, it's all about wool. We are really trying to connect the research we do within the studio in the...
That's brilliant, because the polyurethane foam thing has been really driving me mad. It's like, who's going to come up with the alternative? And I talked to someone that talked about they were trying coconut husk. But
I mean, there is, to be honest, in the pieces in this moment, there is natural latex, still in quite a big quantity, and wool. But what we are trying to do with Takini, we see this as the beginning of a process. And then we want to design a piece of furniture which is fully upholstered with wool, removing fully the synthetic foam.
Oh, I look forward to that. Thank you so much, both.
You're welcome.
That was Simone Farresin and his co-founder Andrea Trimarchi of Formafantasma, the research-led design studio who are really leading the conversation around sustainability and design. So that's it for part 3 in our 4-parter reporting back from Milan Design Week. In part 4, we'll be diving into materials, a big theme this year for many designers and brands. So keep listening to hear all about a biodegradable hemp chair and a material innovation that detects UV rays. So that's it for part 3 in our 4-parter series reporting back from Milan Design Week. In part 4, we'll be diving into materials, which were a huge theme this year for many designers and brands. So keep listening to hear all about a biodegradable hemp chair and a material innovation that detects UV rays.